Hi there, welcome back to the VMO YouTube channel. And they say madness comes in many forms. Well, we've got to be absolutely bonkers today. It's 2 degrees. I'm out on Brean Down in North Somerset. Got a 20-mile-an-hour northwesterly wind pushing into us. If you look at that sea, there's actually a big swell going on, and that's quite unusual for the upper part of the channel. My thinking today is it's the first week of January, it is cold, we're going to try some deeper water in the hope that there could be some fish lurking there. Who knows, we're going to give it a try, let's see what happens. Well, it certainly is windy today, and there's not really anywhere that you can get out of that wind on this coast. Northwesterly is pretty much straight in at you, and that is what we've got. So just got to deal with it. Anyway, I'll go over the tackle I'm using today, as I always do. Apologies if you've seen this for the millionth time, but I'm going to do it anyway. Any Fish Anywhere GBFS Pro Mark 1s, matching pair of those. And you'll see that Damien is also fishing right next to me. So rather than last time when we were fishing 100 metres apart, we can have a bit more of a social fish, which on a day like today will be very welcome. So you're just tackling up there then, Damien. What have you got on there today, mate?
Start off with, I'm just going to go straight into the pulley rig.
Yeah.
About 7 foot in total. I'm still using my clip-on, clip-off bite ends. Which
oh right, how are you getting on with that?
Really well, actually.
Yeah.
I find it makes my fishing a lot tidier, a lot easier, a lot quicker. Not everybody's
so
preference.
the thinking behind that then, you've basically got a quick link on the end of your snood,
Yep.
and then you've got a shorter snood section which you attach onto that.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
so
a good idea.
I could swap between a dongle or a pennel, a drop of a hat.
Yeah.
So it works for me.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with it.
Good stuff. So what's the trace line on there then, mate?
This is very vast, £100. All the way through. Imp. Couple of small breakaway beads.
Yeah.
I believe that's a size 8 power swivel. Through to another size 8, and then onto a fast link.
Pretty much standard pulley rig then, other than the short snood section at the end.
That, yeah.
Right, looks good, mate. I better go and get my own gear sorted out, I reckon.
Okay.
So my reels of choice today, the ever faithful Shimano Power Aero 14,000 XSB models. Loaded up with £20 ASSO Ultracast and a Cedra 25 to £100 tapered shock leader. And I'm just looking at that snow on the other side of the channel on the Welsh mountains, and it looks cold, it feels cold, believe me. It is freezing. So here's a silly little tip for you. Where you've got your shock leader and your link on the end, obviously you've rigged your gear up. What's going to happen on a windy day? That's going to fly off in the wind, and you're going to be like this trying to catch it out of the sky. If you just hook it onto your line like that, that's not going anywhere. Well, as usual, exactly the same as last time, Damien's got a bait on his rod. In fact, he's already chucked one of them out and he's going for the second. And in fishing terms, it's not actually that bad a day today. In terms of human comfort, it's pretty much a 0. It is damn cold, and it's windy and not particularly pleasant, but it does look kind of fishy. I'd like to think that we're in with a chance of a ray or two today at least. And who knows, there might even be a cod out there. So I'll just take a moment to show you the rig that I'm using today, and it's the pulley rig. As you've seen on all of my videos, pulley rig, pulley rig, pulley rig. It may get repetitive, but it works, okay? So this one's about 3.5 to 4 foot in length, £100 rig body, £100 snood, and I've got a 6-ounce lead on there with big wires. To start with anyway, I'm going to see how we get on with a 6 ounce. There is a bit of a sea running there today, so we may have to switch it up to a 7. It's not something I do very often though. On there, I've got the Gemini Splashdown Solo bait clip. Moving up the rig body, I've got a size 2 Cedra power crane swivel, sandwiched between a couple of 5mm beads. I've got a size 3 Cedra power crane swivel onto the snood line. Now, what I'll show you a second is the business end, which is a Varivas 4.0 full circle hook, and that's tied on with a perfection loop so it can rotate. And I've got a dongle on there carrying the VMO Solo dongle bait clip. And yeah, I do use this rig a lot. It forms the bulk of my fishing. What I tend to do is keep everything the same. The location changes, the mark changes, but you keep doing the same thing, keep it consistent, and that tends to be the winning formula. So, choice of baits today. Frozen baits, bit of squid, that's been out of the freezer a couple of times, won't make any difference at all. And some blueies. And I've also got, well actually, I've got a couple of packs of blueies. Okay, really effective bait for rays, very oily, very smelly, fishy bait. Fantastic. So, primary target species today is going to be rays. If a cod comes along, it's not going to say no to a nice fishy, squiddy bait. So there we go, that's my first bait of the day, all clipped down. I've got a nice bluey head on there, wrapped up in squid. Let's go and fire it out there. I've got a really awkward wind today. It's kind of in your face and it's coming from the side a little bit as well, so it's not ideal, but let's just fire one out and see what happens. Well, it wasn't too bad in all fairness. Just hoping that 6 ounce lead's going to hold okay. If not, it will be a 7, but let's mend this line back against the wind. See, with this mark, the tide is running this way, but today the wind is blowing everything this way, and it's always makes things a little bit tricky when you're in that situation. The tide's trying to do one thing, the wind's trying to do another, but what you do want is to keep in touch with that lead. So what I'm doing now is just slowly pulling the line back against the wind. The wind is obviously stronger than the tide, but that gear has got to be on the bottom. Well, Damien thought he had a bite. He wasn't too sure. He thought it might have been weed, but he's got a little ray on. And we're thinking that we'll be able to just hand line this one rather than making the climb down. He's testing his rods, that's for sure. God, it's like a kite in this wind. There you go, mate.
Thank you very much.
Look at that. Well, it's only small, but it's a start to the session. Let's see if we can find something a little bit bigger. So Damien's putting his little ray back, but you do have to be really, really careful on this bit of coastline. Now he's got studded boots on, so that makes all the difference. But again, this is a mark that, you know, it's probably one for the more agile, fitter angler. But take your time and just think about where you're placing your feet. And don't get too close to the water if you can help it. Obviously, when you're putting a fish back like this, or when you're landing a fish, you do have to get reasonably close. But there is risk in everything we do in sea fishing, and you just got to accept that sometimes. So Damien's on cast number 2. And it really is a job today in this wind. It's pretty horrendous, I gotta say. The one thing that I wouldn't want to be without at this time of year is a flask of tea. It's damn cold though, it really is cold. And the thing with this north-facing coast, it doesn't get any sunlight this time of year. In the summer it's great, the sun comes up over Western Bay, comes straight over the top, you get a lovely suntan, but not in the winter. It is freezing. Well, we just had a bit of a crazy experience here. We turned our backs on the rods for a couple of minutes and all we heard was Damien's ratchet, and it was absolutely going off, and it wasn't just a slow short ray run, it was like a fast fish. It picked up the bait and just moved off with it. We're not sure if there's anything there now. So Damien's winding in the rod that he had that run on, and it was a run. You know, it's not something that you'd see happen very often on this mark, but whatever it was did run off. And you kind of expect to be winding this in now and finding something's been bitten off somewhere along the way, but I don't know. Doesn't appear to have been anyway. Well, I'm not surprised that Damien is moving his tripod down a little bit lower and a little bit out of the wind, just to try and tuck out of it as best he can. My first bait's been out there for probably 45 minutes now, and I'm going to give it an hour today. Really don't see any point at all in changing it. It was a very potent bait. Did I have a bite then? No, don't think so. It was a very potent bait, lots of scent trickling out into the tide, and when the conditions are like this, it doesn't make you want to be recasting every 10 minutes, that's for sure. So we've just had a little bit of a chat about the conditions, and we've decided we're going to go down to one rod each with a main bait, if you like, the big bluey and squid baits you've seen us putting out. And on the second rod, I'm going to put out a 3-hook flapper. Little snoods on there, probably about 10 inches long, size 2 hook, couple of ragworm or a single ragworm. I'm just going to lob that down over the edge. Right in close we've got rocks, but that gives way to sand and mud, mostly mud in fairness, and we have caught flounders there in the past. So yeah, just for something different, let's give this a try. So a little 3-hook flapper rig. Just down here it's actually quite clean. The rocks do give way to cleaner ground, so I've got to be careful of Damien's line. The bow of line is coming over this way. Even though he cast out there, the wind has, like I say, created that bow. So I think what I'll do, if I just go over the top, and it doesn't have to go very far at all, something like that. Perfect. And I'm just going to whack that on the same tripod. Well, that's my second cast of the session out there, and that one's been out for probably 45 minutes or so, so I'm going to change that now. Let's see what's going on there. Well, there you go, that's why I'm in no rush to change baits today. That was out there, like I say, probably 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and it is in pretty damn good condition still. Right, let's fire another one out, see what that brings. Get that line mended back against the wind, which seems to be increasing all the time. It's not pleasant conditions today. It's really not. It's me tripping over Damien's rod. But it does look fishy. It's that sort of weather where you've got this raging wind pushing into the bay, and it could push some good fish in. Who knows? Yeah, so it is important to, in conditions like this, to try and keep a tight line to the lead. And by doing that, you're going to see your bites a lot better. If you've got a load of slack line blowing around, you're not going to get a good detection on the rod tip. But that seems to be sat there quite nice in the tide. There's just enough tide at the moment. It's not pulling too much. And that 6 ounce is still holding surprisingly well out there. So Damien's just had a nice bite. It's popped the lead out and it's come down in the tide a bit. Hopefully the fish is still there. Yes, that's looking encouraging, mate.
Yeah.
Fish on?
Fish on.
Good man. Right, that means I've got to get down there and try and land it. And it's going to make this a bit of a challenge. I can see the rig now. Yes. Now I know for a fact there's a bit of a deep patch down here, and if I can pull the fish out into there, it'll be clear from the rocks. Here we go. Now with these circle hooks, they do, when they go in, they stay in. There we go, nice little thornback. Now I'm going to trust the hook hold here. I'm just going to lift the fish. There she is. And what I can also do, which will be helpful for Damien, is just unclip his rig. There we go. Not a bad little ray that, considering the conditions today. Well done, Damien.
Thank you very much, Chance.
Cracker. It's not a bad fish, actually, is it?
No, probably go 6, 7.
Yeah, probably would. It's a plump fish. Is it a female? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. And that circle hook's gone just inside the mouth. Let's give you a closer look at that in a minute. Just steal Damien's fish from him. There you go, look. Just there in the corner of the mouth. Makes it really easy to get them out. But beautiful, lovely looking fawny. There you go, mate. I'll let you deal with that one.
Very much.
And it really is today nice conditions for the fish. Bad conditions for angling, for anglers. Very cold, windy, troublesome in general, but the fish are feeding. Just get my breath back a second, and it's steeper than it looks. I'm going to get another bait out there, I reckon. So Damien's using the new Cedra T-bar just to pop that hook out. Well, there you go, it's done already. That didn't take long, did it?
Nice thorny. We think about 6 to 7 pounds. seem to sort of just, we've been watching the rods obviously intently, and we've been looking around, and every now and again the swell's been playing havoc with our rod tips, but this time the rod bounced back up, stayed back up, so we were pretty confident we had a bite, and there we are. Nice thorny as a result.
I'll try and get this one up into the bay a little bit better, a bit further maybe. That's better. That's more like it. Yeah, this wind it's made it really hard work today. And I think, to be honest, we're coming up to high tide now. Before too long it's going to be time to call it, unfortunately. If the conditions were a little bit kinder, then I'd suggest fishing on for an hour or two of the ebb, but on a day like today, probably not. Well, I've just ducked down out of this awful weather for 2 minutes just to give you a bit of a rundown on what Brean is capable of. Today it's not a great representation of what it can throw up. A couple of rays this time of year in these conditions, you've just got to run with it basically. But on a more settled day, you could catch anything between half a dozen and 20 rays between you. It is a productive mark. Don't let today put you off. So we're fishing a very small tide today. What happens here is there's a big back eddy that forms in Western Bay. The tide always runs from right to left. Obviously we've got the winds coming from left to right, and that's made things difficult for us. If you fish here on a spring tide, that tidal run is so strong that it becomes very difficult to hold bottom, even with bigger leads, especially when you consider that you're casting onto mud. Now, mud is notoriously difficult to grip into. With a standard grip lead, you imagine those grips just clawing through. There's nothing for them to bite onto. That's basically what's happening out there. So it's January, it's the first week of January. I'd be expecting to catch rays here. You can get codling, you'll get flounder. During the summer months, you'd expect to see more rays, certainly more rays, probably smaller male fish, but you also get the congers here. You get bass if you fish closer in with crab baits, and you get the occasional smoothhound as well. It has to be said, this is a mark for the fitter angler, okay? So it's about knowing your limitations. I'm not saying don't try it, everyone should try something once, but this is one of those marks where 200 odd steps before you even get to the fishing mark. So travel light, take only what you need, preferably buddy up with someone, okay? Take a pal with you. It makes life a whole lot easier. You saw earlier on when I was landing Damien's fish just how tricky it can be getting down over the side and retrieving a fish. So give it a try, that's all I'm saying. Play safe, get some decent boots with studs in, and take your time. Oh, Damien's just had a nice bite out of nowhere, and it didn't look like a ray bite anyway. Oh, a lot of slack line there, it's gone off down tide. And he's got a fish on. Chances are it is a ray, but it wasn't much like a ray bite. Be nice to see something a bit different. Well, this fish is actually a bass. We've just seen it. Now, whether it stays on in this swell is another thing altogether. And it's coming in at the most awkward spot for landing fish. It's getting pummeled by waves. Oh, it's gone. Well, bloody hell, mate, that was a bit unfortunate, wasn't it? I could see it happening. I was making my way down there, I could just see this bass, and the waves were coming in, and eventually that was that.
That was that, yeah. It's just one of those things, isn't it? We have got exceptional swell today, so it was always going to be tricky. Even getting fish up and back is tricky today.
Yeah, it's all right with rays, isn't it? Once that hook goes into a ray, it's generally okay. But when you've got a good bass on in the edge like that,
it was just unfortunate. It's one of those things. Is how it works. that's fishing.
Absolutely.
You know, maybe next time, eh?
Yeah, it does make you wonder though. When we had that bite early on, your rod screamed off, didn't it? We literally turned our backs for a second, and then with that, it was just zzz, it was gone.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we were sort of slightly in doubt at the time, weren't we?
Yeah,
about what it could have been, but I think now with that and the loss of the bass down in the edge, I think it's fairly clear that.
Yeah, it was probably a bass, probably quite a decent one as well.
More than likely,
I mean, the one that you lost, I got a good look at it, and I reckon it was between £5 and £7 maybe. Nice looking fish, but you didn't want to know that, did you?
I didn't want to know, no. Well, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense now. So, but it's encouraging because we've come out here in the face of quite some considerable adversity.
It's not nice, is it?
And we've done all right.
Yeah.
You know, we've had 2 decent bites from the bass. We've had thornback, so we've done all right. I think
a few bites at a difficult time of year. You can't really ask for much more than that,
in
can
difficult
you?
conditions.
Yeah.
Happy days.
So this rod, I've only had that in the water a short while, and it was locked over in the tide, and it pulled over once, and it's come up, and it's kind of waving around a bit. So I'm pretty sure there's a ray on this one. Let's have a look. Now the scratching rods are over there, and they haven't moved, so that's a bit of a shame. Would have been nice to have shown you a different fish today. Oh, that's actually going a bit slack as I hold it, so let's have a look. Well, there's something on here. Doesn't feel very big, but that's strange actually. I'll tell you what, I'm going to get down the bottom in case it's a bass. Okay, that probably is a ray. Going to go a little bit easy, just in case. Staying down. And it's swimming about. Surely this isn't a ray. It is a ray, and it's only a small one as well. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to go for the old hand line here, I think. There we go. Try not to snap the tip on my rod because I'm a little bit precarious here. That should do it though. Come on, there we go. Whee! That was a good scrap as well. I was kind of half thinking that might have been something a bit better, but no, just a little token thornback ray again. Some might even call that a tea bag. But look at that. Very, very pretty little fish all the same. Let's go and pop him back. Well, that bait's only been out there sort of 10 minutes or so, and the tip's just pulled round, and now it's kind of coming back up a bit. You can see it's pulling there now. Gives me time to have a look at that one in a minute. I wouldn't be surprised if it was to go slack. To belt that one right up tide, and that fish is probably going to trip the lead. Yeah, let's get this rig out the way. I do like to hold the rod though, as you've seen in previous videos. If you hold the rod, it just gives you a little bit of a better feeling sometimes of what's going on. And yeah, I mean, I cast that right across into the bay, and it's come round kind of level with us, so I'm guessing a ray has picked up the bait, and as soon as I feel a little bit more interest, I think I'm going to wind down to this. So remember, I'm using a circle hook on a dongle rig, so I don't want to be striking. There we go. So yeah, that's been going for a while. I'd say it's time to have a look and see what's going on. That's more like it. And you never know how big these rays are going to be. You know, usually this time of year you'd expect it to be a reasonable one, but there's literally such big numbers of rays in the channel. Getting through the smaller ones nowadays is a bit of a task. So, right, what I'm going to do is make my way down over the side. And I know I've said this a few times already today, but take your time. If you're going to do this, take your time. Just got to mend my way underneath Damien's line. There are some rocks in close, and you don't want to let it get down in the bottom too much. There we go. Now we're underneath Damien's line, that's better. There's a bit of weight to this one, it would seem. I think we have got Damien's line there as well. Oh dear. Don't blame me, Damien, blame the fish, mate. She's swimming off down tide. Right, she's not very far out. And I know for a fact it's pretty clear just there where the fish is. There's no snags. So I can take my time on these rocks. And that is what you've got to do. Take your time. So there's the leader knot. Here comes the fish. Now if I try and bring her in just down here. Now if I give myself enough line, just open the clutch a bit, pay some line off, like that. I can then grab that shock leader and use a wave. There we go. Now the fish is pretty much on dry deck. Not very big at all, but probably 4 or 5 pound. And on a day like this, it's been bloody hard work, I don't mind saying. It's cold, it's freezing cold, it's blowing a hoolie, but there are some fish out there. Anyway, let's bring them up and get this hook out. There we go. Oh dear me. So I'll pop that down on the tripod. And again, look at that hook. That's exactly where you want your hook to be. Right, this will make things easier. Look at that. Piece of cake. So minimum damage to the fish. If you deep hook a ray and you put it back, I think you're often kidding yourself that it's actually survived. But there we go. Lovely. Just trying to take off in this wind. Right, let's go get her back in the water. And there's still quite a big sea running here, so I'm not going to get too close. Obviously, when you are returning a fish like this, you want to get as close as you can. You know, it's only fair on the fish. I'd say about there is safe enough. There we go. No belly flopping, just a nice dive back into the drink. I think we've had our fill for today. It's just coming up to high tide now. That big sea going on down there. That wind blowing into the bay. It has made it really hard work. But I hope you enjoyed watching and you found it useful. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and I'll catch you on the next one.